recording this session. We are in Facebook Live. So thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome everyone for today's live session at Morehouse School of Medicine online education program. And we have an exciting session today because we have two of our guests and we are going to talk about the medical cannabis market in Georgia, where we are because Morehouse School of Medicine is in state of Georgia. So we thought that, it is the one of the best topic that we can discuss because it being long time that 2015 Georgia is medically approved, but still there's a lot of work need to be done. And I met with Angela and we had a great kind of chemistry, and we started actually talking about a lot of different challenges that what we had and how much work need to be done in state of Georgia with respect to medical cannabis. And I think that doing a lot of work itself, that Georgia Medical Association with these folks are doing a huge contribution to move this whole mission to give the plant the recognition at the state of Georgia so that more and more patients are getting benefited to this. So welcome, Angela, and welcome, Yolanda. So first, I would like to thank both of you to be part of this online session at Morehouse School of Medicine. Just a little bit about our guest. So Angela is co-founder and chairman of Georgia Medical Cannabis Society. Her educational journey is phenomenal and lot of dedication that you can tell that she completed her coursework in anatomy and physiology, microbiology, chemistry at Georgia State Perimeter College. Her academic foundation also includes a BS in Business Management from Southern University and a Master's of Science in Information Technology from American Intercontinental University, MBA from Keller Graduate School of Management, and a Master's of Science in Medical Cannabis Science and Therapeutics program from the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy. So amazing experience, amazing background that she is driven by the passion of her to holistic being, well-being, and she is actively pursuing her path towards becoming nationally certified holistic health practitioner, and her journey solidify her commitment to the holistic health and education and her dedication to promoting the well-being through the natural approaches where the medical cannabis plays a very important role. And her partner, Yolanda, the herbal trucker, so she is the co-founder and chairman for Georgia Medical Society, Cannabis Society. And she is basically that, like a huge cannabis advocate and actively monitoring and influencing the legislation related to the cannabis and hemp industry in Georgia. Her transition from the logistic industry to cannabis advocacy was driven by her personal health challenges, which is really now these days a lot of people they are coming forward because like the education is changing the game in United States, all over the globally also, that people are coming forward and share their health challenges and health history and how medical cannabis being such a great help for them to provide them a better care or better quality of life is amazing. As a co-founder and vice chairman of the Georgia Medical Cannabis Society and a dedicated member of GMCS Action Team, Yolanda plays a very vital role in the educational and legislative effort to promote the benefit of cannabis. And she co-owns the Canna Shame Network and hosts the Your Ends Oversized Load Product podcast that shows offers a voice of individuals eager to share their significant and unheard stories and challenges of the negative stigma associated with cannabis role, which is really, really critical to remove the stigma and giving the plant the benefits and the opportunity that what the plant deserves. So they both are actively involved and the founders of Georgia Medical Cannabis Society, which is helping one patient at a time. And uh, let me unmute them. Okay, so and Georgia Medical Society not sell or manufacture medical cannabis product, but they are actively involved in the legislation process with the state of Georgia. They are actively working with them, as well as that like they are educating the patient, the consumers. Their mission is to assist the patients and provide them the necessary resources and education for the medical cannabis oil, low percentage THC. They are also trying to educate the others for the benefit of cannabis, because scientific studies shows that like and globally that how valuable the medical cannabis is for so many different disorders. So it is really privilege and honor to welcome Yolanda and Angela to this forum and this platform, and I welcome you both to this our online session at Morehouse School of Medicine. And floor is all yours. And welcome again.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak to you all today, and kind of give you some of the history of the cannabis medical program in Georgia, the history of our organization, and so forth. So, so Dr. Bid, you just want to kind of just go ahead and start where we are now?
Yes, please.
Okay, so kind of want to start off giving the history of cannabis in Georgia, and Yolanda will kind of
okay, yes. Yeah, allow me to go ahead and give you the history of cannabis in Georgia. The history of medical cannabis in Georgia started in February 1980 with the Mona Taft bill that passed both the House and the Senate and signed into law. The law supported legal cannabis for people diagnosed with glaucoma and cancer patients going through radiation and chemotherapy treatments. The law sat dormant for 35 years. There was neither a program implemented nor a way for patients to get cannabis. Fast forward to April 2015, when low-dose THC cannabis oil was legalized with the Haley Hope Act, HB1, was signed into law by Governor Nathan Deal. That was a bill that allowed possession of oil for 8 conditions, but we still didn't have a way of getting the oil. There wasn't anything put in place for distribution or cultivation. In May of 2017, Senate Bill SB 16 was passed that added 6 more conditions, but still no way of getting the oil. In 2018, PTSD and irretractable pain added via House Bill HB 65, but guess what? Still no way to get the low-dose THC oil in the state. Now, we had 17 qualifying conditions, but still no oil. Now, moving forward to 2019, when HB 324 was passed that allowed the cultivation, processing, and sale of oil in the state. This is when the Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission was created to oversee the process. Georgia's HOPE Act took effect July 1st, 2019. The commission members were appointed in November 2020. Applications processed for licenses started with, but held up by lawsuits. In 2021, another Senate bill was passed, SB 195, that allowed the sale of tinctures, transdermal patches, and lotions. In April 2023, the first dispensary finally opened. This year, SB 495 was passed that extended the expiration of the cards from 2 years to 5 years and allows the Department of Health to mail the cards out. So I'll allow you to continue.
So as you all can see, it's taken a long time. I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Bid.
No, thank you so much for the history. And if you guys have any slides to share, that I already give you the permission so you can share your slides.
Okay, nope, we didn't have any slides. We just kind of want to give the history of what was actually going on in the state of Georgia, just kind of showcasing where it actually started in 1980. But then here we are in 2024, and we do have 2 of the licensees that are operating with several 4 dispensaries or more, 5 dispensaries. I can't remember exactly how many we have dispensaries, because they're located in various locations, but it's just 2 of the licensees that have dispensaries right now across several spaces in Georgia. There's one in Marietta. There's another one in Stockbridge, I know for sure that one. And then some other ones that they actually have. But still, if you take a look at where we are in this process, going from 1980, where it was said that cannabis was legal to use for medicinal purposes, basically for the glaucoma and for cancer patients on utilizing chemotherapy treatments. So where we are from that point and how long it took for us to get here to 2023, getting our first dispensaries, we went a lot of years without having anything. Basically, it was more like the Wild Wild West. The state said you can have it, but we're not going to help you get it. You had to figure it out on your own. And if you stop and think about that, how devastating that would be to a patient who needs it, you don't know where to get it, You're afraid of what you're getting because you don't know. There's a lack of education there of how to use it. Or like we had some patients who actually mentioned, and some of them testified to that as well in under the Gold Dome, that they had to go to dark alleys, to be able to get it from, the street market. So that was totally unsafe, but it said, yeah, you can have it, but, we're going to not allow you to, we're not going to provide a way for you to get it. So, I would say we've come a ways. I wouldn't say we've come a long way. It's been a long time. But however, there's still a need for additional conditions and additional education and information in the state from where we are now. So it's been a long time coming. I am glad that we do have some dispensaries, but if you stop and think about that, some of the locations I mentioned where they are, not many people can really get to them. So that's some issues, and that's something we'll talk about, we talk about some of the issues that we're still facing in the state, even though we do have a medical cannabis program at this time.
Actually, let me go ahead and change that.
Okay.
The medical cannabis program, that term itself is not existent in the bill. So the term that they use is low dose THC oil. However, if we can get that language changed in the bill, we will be able to expand the availability of products for patients here in Georgia. So that would go from just the sublinguals, the topicals, and the transdermals. Well, the topicals are
topicals, yeah, but still, but it'll kind of move away from that. And what we're also hoping is that at some point that we would be able to add flower to that, because right now we don't. All we have is that low THC oil that would be available. With some of the dispensaries do have some gummies. They have the lotions or creams that they use in some transdermals, but we really don't have enough. And you think about how long it's been since we've had anything. Right now with the low THC, what is it, less than 5% that we have. If you think about that, most of the patients who have been out there utilizing cannabis from wherever they've received it have pretty much titrated out of that. So when you look at it from that standpoint and think about it from the expense of now, I can only use this particular oil. How much of it am I going to have to use to mitigate my pain? I have to use more, so it's going to cost more. And it is very costly right now, of course, because if you think about it, there's not a lot of competition out there right now, and there's not enough patients on the registry. So the cost is very high for patients, which is kind of why we got started too.
Exactly, because it's not covered right now under healthcare insurance. Right. However, there are some doctors who found a way to conduct the health, the medical the low dose THC evaluation. However, they do define it as medical cannabis recommendation, because at this point in time, since it's still a Schedule I narcotic, doctors can only recommend the usage of cannabis.
I think that one of the important things that you guys mentioned, I think that it's really important for the listeners to understand that, especially that the legal language in the state, that low dose THC rather than medical cannabis, that which is a kind of like a huge restriction for the whole state. And it's kind of like, when we think about that, it's all deliberate things that, people do that because they know that, how to play with the language, right? And which kind of like restrict the patients so much, because if we think about that overall history that you guys mentioned, that 2015 to now the 2024, and we are still hanging there like low percentage THC oil, it's a shame.
Right.
The reason being is because, the amount of scientific literature out there, which is supporting that the use of medical cannabis, the application of medical cannabis in each and every disorder, either you talk about cancer, you talk about PTSD, you talk about neurodegenerative disorders. And it's not only that, because, one of the unique things that which medical cannabis does is that the interaction between the phytocannabinoids and endocannabinoid system is not only the therapeutic, but it's preventive also. So basically that the people that who are just recreationally using it in a very low amount, it's kind of like nurturing their normal cells to boost their immunity, to strengthen their bone cells and so many different things, right? So that means that, like when we think about that, still the stigma is there where it plays a really important role. So you guys, like work with state legislators a lot. And, like I've been working with the state legislator for so many different years with the different states also. So I know that whole caveat. So what you guys specifically see the challenges in the state that, like, do you think that it's a lack of education there? Do you think that it's a lack of proper personnel that who are really supporter all knowledgeable in the state that who are not sitting there? So the things are kind of like randomly going here and there because the people who are there and regulating the program, they don't want medical cannabis to be legal or kind of like readily available to the patients because it is so valuable for the patients, and all the states are doing that, right? There's a no if but we have the evidences everywhere nationally and globally. So what kind of challenges you guys see when you talk with the legislators and regulators in state of Georgia?
Yeah, there's lots of challenges. We both have seen those, and Yolanda can speak to it more than I can. She's been to the Capitol more than I have and testified. Because this was my first year going out to testify, but she started out last year going out to do that. So you can talk about what that's like.
Well, initially when I started, I was going to learn because I was following some of the advocates that were there testifying, because I had to realize that I'm just an average citizen, and I realized that I do have a voice. And so once I testified once, that's when I actually got active, and I noticed that it seems like when I was going into different rooms to testify for different bills, it seems like it was like the advocates were scarce throughout. And so that was last year. And so this year we came in with a strategic plan to organize our GMCS action team, which our coordinator, Christina Flores, basically we all created the Pressure Squad. And the Pressure Squad is a unique unit of people who are training advocates on how to testify in legislation arenas, basically. And so we were able to focus on a bill, HB 1322, and we were able to have that table, but we had a rude awakening. And with the how legislation happens, because we thought that since that particular bill was tabled, the legislators were kind of savvy. And what they ended up doing was taking a bill that had already passed all of the committees and ready for a House vote and attached this particular bill to it. So this bill that we thought was tabled ended up changing a 19-page bill to a 32-page bill. So what we learned this year is to make sure to equip each of our advocates to go out to testify at the Capitol with the things to say, the key points, so that we can go in there with one voice, one sound, so that we're able to articulate and to educate the legislators, because a lot of the legislators are caught up in their own ways to where they think they're still living in 1937 or the reefer madness type mentality. And with the reefer madness mentality, basically is saying that cannabis is a harmful drug. And we have to also look at who else benefits by cannabis being illegal, not accessible, and less patients being able to use it. That's also law enforcement. We also have to think about the big pharma, because with law enforcement, I am a former correction officer, and I realized that in the prisons, when I was there, they utilized free labor. And usually the free labor, the trustees were the ones with the non-violent convictions. And most of those convictions were drug related. And so basically another person who would benefit, another group that would benefit from it will be the state of Georgia, along with law enforcement, because they're not having to take out of their budget to have labor to keep the prison up, the farms, and also the motor vehicles, the state facilities. When I was there, the inmates did go to the Georgia State Patrol to clean up the facility, the governor's mansions. So we have to look at the bigger scope on why they want to keep this plant illegal. So I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, I think
it's a really great point that what you mentioned. And I think that, like, again, that, like when there is something that which is not right, and when we see, then, like for a long time, like state of Georgia, then, we start, everybody start thinking about in a different direction, why it is not happening. Because evidences are there, science is there, clinical data is there, clinical trials are there. But why then this state is acting a unique space, not following the other states which are kind of far ahead to treating lot of disease. Data is showing that 25 different states that who are recreationally already approved that time, that their opioid addiction reduced 65%. So it's not that this, and again, we don't never claim that this is a magical drug, but it has a lot of potential. And the consumers and the patients need to have that access of this wonderful drug, because it has a lot of medical potential with a very minimum side effects if you know perfectly how to use it. My always a great notion about that because people talk about that, a side effect of medical marijuana. So then I always kind of like argue that, what if you think about anything that, like any clinical drug, everything has a side effect if you Google it, right? And then I talk about that, okay, let's talk about just water. We drink water every day, but if I'm going to give somebody 15 glass of water, their body is going to reject that because they don't need 15 glass of water. That means they are using beyond and above whatever, either it is a water also. So that means a regulated use makes a big difference. And I think that, you guys are doing a phenomenal job to kind of like, like in various different aspects to educate people. So tell us a little bit about that, how your organization started, what is the role of your organization, how your organization structure, and that, like how our student can be a part of your organization or get to be like maybe testimony, or because there are a lot of students, our students, they are from Atlanta and state of Georgia. And I think that, like after doing the master's program at Morehouse School of Medicine, I think that, and my strong belief is that anybody that who wanted to be successful in this field, they need to know A to Z. That means seed to sale. That means everything. And they don't need to be expert of everything, but they need to know the whole process from seed to cultivation to extraction, packaging, testing, manufacturing, dispensary. And most important is that how to navigate the legislation, the regulatory part, the policies, the quality control, and especially for all the students, that because our students are all over the United States, that wherever the state they are in, they should know that how to navigate the state website for the medical marijuana program, that okay, this is how I navigate to see the cultivation application, or how many cultivators are there, what is their patient medical cannabis patient program is there, how much they allow, what are the caregivers, what are the prices, what are their restrictions, what are their different various different disorders that they approve. So it is really important to understand those things. So tell us about your organization, what's your organization is doing right now, what's the structure, so that like everybody know about that, like what you guys, like how you guys evolve.
Yeah, definitely. So the Georgia Medical Cannabis Society started in 2019. in June of 2019. So we're coming up on our 5th year anniversary of the organization. So we're very happy about that. Basically, we started out of necessity. And it started because we saw a need. There was a gap between the program that the state offered and the patients. One of those gaps was a list of providers. So even if you wanted to get your medical cannabis card, people didn't know how. If you would go to the Department of Health website, you wouldn't even see a list of providers there. So where do you go? So that was one of the reasons why we got it started. The other reason, back in 2018, Yolanda was very ill at that time. And so we had a friend who introduced us to Dr. Rashawn Hodge, who happens to be a graduate of Morehouse Medical. He had a pain clinic, and that's where she first went. And just basically seeing her walk into that office, or I want to say walk into the office, because she barely got into the office. She was using a walker at the time, but had a wheelchair and all of that just to be able to make it most days. Cane. So we kind of joke about it sometimes that we have a DME center in our home. We have medical equipment everywhere. But just to see from the time that she was able to get her evaluation, to get her card, even though we didn't have the oil, and still had to, thankful to some advocates that we actually had, and one of them unfortunately passed away, the Right Reverend Dr. Carl Davis, who actually had it was, I think it was there's some type of there's a law here in Georgia, and I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the exact law, but he was the Right Reverend is what it was. And there was like a cannabosum position or something that you could have with the state. And that pretty much allowed him to be able to provide some oil, basically, or the cannabis to patients. So we were able to get that. And from seeing that, just seeing where she was then to where she is now, no longer using the wheelchair, utilizing the walker, just because, when you're out walking, kind of need that, utilizing cane here, but just the ultimate mobility and the quality of life that she has now. That's kind of what really prompted us to get into this. We knew how hard it was for us to navigate through this system, and really did not want people to go through the same thing we did. When we first started out, because both of us are patients and we both have our cards now, navigating through this system, we didn't know where to go. So we didn't want patients to have that same experience. And also, when we were out there trying to get the meds when we didn't have a dispensary, we're talking 2018, 2019 here, we realized how costly it was. Yes. So one of the other reasons why we started is because we wanted to have a nonprofit organization where we could get funding to actually give away the medicine too. And I still call it medicine, because whether you're using it recreationally or medicinally, it's still medicine, because it still helps either way. But the cost of it is what prompted that. And so we were actually, in the beginning, before we got our 501, we put our application, everything in, and we were out of pocket. We've been self-funded since 2019. And we were out of our own pockets helping patients. And then during our 501 process is when we realized, they told us, you can't do that. And we weren't even thinking about that we were doing something illegal. We were just trying to help people and didn't know, we had, in Georgia, there was a program and you had a card and you were able to use it. So we didn't look at it from a federal standpoint of it. We were just looking at the patients in our state, our neighbors who needed, and we were trying to provide. So we had to stop doing that. And so we continued just to get the 501, and we did get our 501 in the same year. But in order to continue, we had to discontinue giving it away. So what we continued doing was helping patients find providers and connecting them to the Right Reverend. so that he can get them the oil. And so that's kind of the gist of it. But moving forward, we've kind of gotten into, our organization's kind of elevated a bit, kind of going into a path that we never thought that we would really get into. Like Londa was talking about getting into legislation, that became a need as well. Because as we were seeing this program that we have, where we basically were paying $25 every 2 years for a card that was pretty much worthless. We just carried it to say that we had it, but we didn't have any place to get what was required.
For Washington, D.C.
Oh, yeah.
Louisiana, which pretty much set us up to automatically break the law.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're going to break the laws, because you're not supposed to take cannabis across federal lines.
Right. Is that was a problem as well with us, because traveling, we were happy to go to some places that allowed us to be able to utilize our card there so we could get meds at their dispensary, but not all states allowed that. Some states depend upon if you had the condition, and some states required that you had to sign up for them before you could even get there and be on their registry. And there's some states that do that. But anyway, with that, we just kind of continued on, and that's how we kind of got into the legislation when we were seeing what was actually going on, and in realizing that we had to be a part of this somehow, because understanding that there were laws there that were being activated, I want to say, or passed and signed, or bills that were being activated, signed into law, that were affecting us, but we were not asked. The community was never really contacted about to discuss what we really needed, even as it moved forward. Even when we started off with the low THC program that we had, even when we got to the point of having licenses, no one really asked, okay, what do you need now? Because like I said before and earlier, is that most of us have titrated out of that low 5%. And, we need more, and we need more ways of being able to utilize the plant. So getting into legislation, we figured that, okay, we need to get in and start talking to our elected officials under that gold dome. But of course, when we got there, we realized that they didn't know a lot. They were basically going on, and I won't say there's everybody. There are a few that really have tried to educate themselves on the plant, but for the majority, but that's not the majority, I would say. They basically listen to lobbyists that come in, or people who consider themselves to be certain subject matter experts on certain things, but they are really not. And they're taking their word as being the word. And so we decided that we needed to take action. And that's what she was talking about, our pressure squad, people who are educated on cannabis and its uses and so forth, to be able to kind of talk to them. But in having those conversations with them and testifying, realizing more and more that they were not listening. And of course, when we took a look at where we were, she talked about the bill that was basically tabled and how they tacked it, and what we found out it's called a rider is what they call it. And so we've been educating ourselves on how they operate under the gold dome as well, so that we could be better equipped. But that's what they did. They call it a rider, and they added on to another bill to get that bill to pass. And they do it during the time where we're at the end before sign or die. And sign or die, if anybody doesn't know what that is, that's the very last day that they're actually in session. And if anything doesn't get through, then it's gone, unless it's still alive, and maybe they can pick it up another year. But at that point, when you start watching this, because we would actually go in and watch the sessions online, because they have it on, they stream it. We were seeing how tired some of our, legislators were. So if you think about them sliding in something, like she said, it went from a 19-page bill to a 30-something page bill. So when all that information is tacked on at the end, do you think they're really reading that?
And they have to trust their fellow legislator, which we do believe that is completely unethical, because we need to have an opportunity. Each bill should have an opportunity for public testimony, because the way that the bill passed out the committee should be what passes through rules. But we know this is how politics happen. Like the particular bill that we were fighting for so deeply. And the reason why we were fighting for this particular bill, because it is a hemp bill. However, it allowed us to have the inhalation that was intentionally written out of the Haley's Hope, no inhalation, and only sublinguals and topicals.
Mm-hmm. So yes, I'm just saying, and notice she didn't say politics, she said politics. In case you didn't pick that up, because that's exactly what it is. But and the bill that she basically was talking about was the one that we're fighting for this year. Because we don't have flour, and most of us, if anybody knows that you start thinking about if you think about how the system actually works, we talking about the first pass metabolism. When you inhale, it gets past that. That's your quick. Everything else has to go and be metabolized in the liver for it to get to your body. So you're talking about maybe 20, 30 minutes before you can start feeling an effect. And then some of us, we need that instant. And so I don't think that a patient should have to wait 30 minutes, to be able to have less pain. So we do need the flour. But however, what this bill actually did was it's taking away the THCA, which is they closed the loophole that was saved from the 2018 Farm Bill when they made hemp legal at that point. This is what they're calling closing the loop. So this is how we were able to get our flowers from our local CBD stores. But now, as of October 1st,
which is ironic.
It's ironic because that was what the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937 went into effect October 1st. So it's kind of ironic that on that particular day, our flour will be taken away. So we'll no longer have that. And so this is what I was talking about as far as the community not being involved in this process, when them asking about that, because I fully understand that you want to have everyone to go to dispensaries. Don't get me wrong. I understand we need to have, a particular program, but the problem with this is that now you have patients who were using flour from the CBD stores to supplement what they may have been getting from the dispensary. Now you're taking that away and you're leaving them with nothing. And so this is another reason why we wanted to get into the community, to get the community involved, because what we want to do is to remind people that elected officials are just that, elected. And we want to make sure that that the community is being heard, but there's some people that don't know how to speak to their elected officials. So that's where we've gone into kind of want to teach people how to do that, how to utilize their voice so they can be heard, and to remind the elected officials that you were elected because we elected you, and you need to actually begin to listen to us. And we need to be able to tell you what we need so that you can represent us based upon what we're saying that we need.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's what you guys are doing, and hearing the whole journey, that it's very inspiring, because like all journeys comes and starts from personal experience. And I think that that's a drive for you guys. I think that like to keep pushing the state of Georgia. And you mentioned about the THCA for the users, or for the our listeners, just who don't understand a lot of scientific aspect of medical cannabis. So it has a different various types, also acidic cannabinoids, neutral cannabinoids, and varinic cannabinoids. And when we talk about THCA, it's the acidic form of the THC, which full name is tetrahydrocannabinolic acid. And that's how the cannabis plant mature and its buds grow. Its terpenes and cannabinoid content start to begin to develop in the trichome, but the first cannabinoid the plant will develop is CBGA, which is called as mother of all cannabinoids, because it is eventually break down and produce the primary cannabinoids like THCA, CBDA, etc. And THCA is not intoxicating if ingested. So chemically, it has an additional molecular carboxylic ring that attached to that, which prevents it from the binding to the receptor in the brain and responsible for feeling high. So that's why the difference between THC and THCA is, the biggest difference is that THCA does not produce the intoxicating effect because of that carboxylic is not there, that which helps to bind in the receptors in the brain. So that's what I wanted to tell the users. And there's a very interesting question actually come from one of our student, Takia, mentioned that, in the chat box, that I live in Georgia and the policy is an area of medical cannabis. How can I get more involved? How our students can be more involved? So we would like to hear a little bit your perspective, and how our student can approach your organization if they wanted to involve, or if there are other ways also in Georgia's medical cannabis industry.
Oh, definitely. They can reach out to us. And we would love to work with the students as well. As far as in with our organization, because we do need people to help us when it comes down to working with our legislators, for one. More people to understand activism, advocacy, and understand how our policymakers do things. So that, because it's that level of understanding that is truly needed. But we also need people who are educated in cannabis as well to be able to go out and help us with this, because not only are we looking at educating our legislators, we want to educate the community too, for that stigma. And that's something that we've actually been doing as well. We had a podcast too, that we did that was designed to have discussions about cannabis and try to break that stigma surrounding cannabis. So we definitely would love to have you all to come and reach out to us. You can go to our website and be able to reach us there, so that you can be a part of our series that we have. We're looking at starting this summer for sure, going out in the community and teaching activism, advocacy, and also teaching more on cannabis to the patients, or to the constituency, or so I would say, in the state, to get them more educated so they can also start speaking up for themselves, because and breaking that stigma as well, because that's one of the things that, we have a lot of patients who reach out to us via direct message, from Facebook and so forth. We have calls, but they don't want to give their name, for various reasons, because there's such a stigma. They're concerned about their jobs, concerned about their family, maybe knowing. So the more we get out in the community, those of us who have the cannabis education, and not just, just know more about the plant, can actually talk to people about it, we can start to remove that stigma. And at that point, we can begin to start seeing some changes, hopefully in legislation, by everybody who is more knowledgeable and can speak up. So definitely reach out to us, and that contact, and Yolanda popped our contact information in the chat, where you can actually reach out to begin working with us. And we also will have some other opportunities as well going forward. As we move along, we have some exciting things coming up with where students can actually get involved with some things. We want to definitely get into research, and looking at more ways that we can, utilize the plant, and find out how people are using it, trying to kind of gather some more data, especially here in Georgia, because I think we really do need that here, because, with our legislators, with them not really listening, I think that we can show them, the more data that we can show them, I think the better, something that we can actually, something they can see, more than just hear. Give them something that they can see. That data is what's going to change them when they begin to see the patient testimonies, and seeing, where I was, and even with Yolanda, where she was, where she is now, and other patients out there. We have a friend of ours who has an autistic son, and introduced them to the oil. He got his medical cannabis card. He was nonverbal. He's actually speaking better now. He's writing. She just posted some awards that he got for the end of the school year. So he's excelled just from using cannabis. From that level. And so we have those testimonies, but if we can actually track that data and be able to show the state, our legislators, this is what's happening here. This is why we need this. This is how people are using it. Then I believe that we will be able to change the head. So we need to be what that was that saying, we need to be the neck that turns the head. So
yes. And that's what we're working on. However, although they already do have the data, we need to go ahead and just amplify our voices, because they have the data from the Schaefer Commission from the 1970s. So literally, there's no excuse except for we just have to remind them about what it is and the fact that there is a patent on cannabis from the United States.
No, I think that that's a really a great help and the huge important information for the students that, and thanks for sharing the information in the chat box that they can reach out to you guys, because I think that like what you guys said, that like it's really important, especially that like when the students are graduating from a reputed colleges and universities with a immense amount of knowledge from University of Maryland, Morehouse School of Medicine. So then, like it's kind of like create a huge difference that when those people are talking with the patients, talking with the legislators, those students are talking with the consumers, it creates a huge difference, because like they have the ability to explain the things in a layman language, even though their scientific ability to expand the science in a way complex, like science, but I think that it is important to for those folks that like it's really they have the ability to understand the laws, the regulations, and the policies, the quality control, etc. And along with that, the organization that like you guys have, that like it's creating such a big impact with relation to either it is a patient relationship or either it is a connectivity with various different community members, etc. And one thing that what you mentioned, that I think that it's a really critical part, that what you mentioned, it is always kind of like now in CDC, FDA, and the clinical trials also, with modern medicines, it's a big question mark, that like we are kind of like struggling with the data, because there's always a talk about that in those clinical trials we have the data, but not there's enough diversity is there, and there's no minority populations data is there. And I think that's a really, really critical point, because like again, we all are genetically different. So that means that like we need the data from minority populations, so that we get to know that what's there, how that the receptors are expressing there, how various different endocannabinoids are releasing in the body, so that like it's going to help a lot to the clinicians to navigate the way out, because medical cannabis is a personalized therapy, and down the road, once scheduling or descheduling will happen, how long it will take, and then after that we will go towards that path. But till that path, I think that we need to be ready at state of Georgia to have all this information. And again, that like it is an amazing work that what you guys are doing, and the data is already there. But like I always kind of like surprised that how much data the legislators need, how much data the state official needs, because globally there's the data. The whole country is producing the data, every state is producing the data. And now that we are there at that point at medical cannabis, that the education at that point, that like people are coming in a forefront to like self testimony, observational studies. And I always tell that one thing that which is unique about the medical cannabis field is that, because I'm coming from a drug discovery field, that where I know that a single drug coming from the laboratory to the human patients, it takes like 20 to 30 years. But we are so fortunate with the medical cannabis, we are trying this medicine from decades all over the globally, and we have that data. But along with that, when we think about that, like, oh, we don't need to go to the clinical trials, because we already have the dispensary data on patients that we are collecting, and based on that we can easily put our application for phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 clinical trial. But the plant is complex, the products are complex, and as you guys mentioned that like it was a really good point that what you guys mentioned about that various different kind of products, right? So there is always a question comes to me that like when I talk various different places, that why we need so many different kind of products. The reason being that we need so many different kind of products because we have so many different kind of patients. Every patient has a different limitations. Every patients are not able to take the tinctures or alcohol based tinctures or smoking or balms or like patches, etc. But still, and we know that today's data that like in United States, that older population are the biggest user for medical cannabis. And if I see the limitations, then still, if we have that variety of products in the market, then we still can give the opportunity to the old folks, and they can use the suppositories if they have that allergy, and with the smoking and the alcohol based tinctures, etc., to get benefited. So I think that, the different kind of products is really very critical. But along with that, the data that what we are talking about and the research is really great. And we need to start collecting the data. And I think that I really appreciate that you guys are open to bringing the students or providing them the opportunity to be involved in so many different process of state of Georgia, because I think that there are a lot of students like Takia that who are coming in the forefront and talking about that, okay, I am here and I wanted to be the part of that. Because as we mentioned, that until unless you are not in the part of the process, with then you cannot utilize the education, the power of the education that what you are gaining from Morehouse School of Medicine or any other institute. So I think that's really critical. So at the end, that we are with the end of the rope, that so we are almost close to 7 o'clock. So I wanted to give you guys the opportunity. Any last words, any last thoughts that you wanted to share with our learners, with our listeners?
The only thing that I want to say is definitely get involved. We all have to be a part of the process to make sure that there's a change. And for myself, I would say, I'm in the same boat with some of you all, with a cannabis degree in a state that doesn't have, that's not even legal, except for, a low THC program. So in having an opportunity or helping to provide an opportunity for you to be able to utilize your education is very near and dear to me, because that's the same issue that I was facing here, as well as unlike some of my counterparts that I went to school with, because I went to the University of Maryland for my degree. But the thing is, Maryland has a different program. So a lot of my counterparts who were in California, Maryland, they have different opportunities than what I have here. So I definitely, like the idea that we will be able to help, that area for you to be able to utilize what you're learning in school. So that's my take on that. Closing for you.
We will definitely be looking forward to you all reaching out to us and joining the Pressure Squad and being a part of the series, because we need to show numbers. We need to have educated and articulate people to relay the message to the legislators, because we found out a lot of the legislators don't like to read. So if it's, you got to be able to be quick in and out. And we just want to make sure that we're able to, just like I said, educate the people. And I think that's just about it. And because education is the key, because these people are still operating on the marijuana reefer madness type mentality.
That's stigma.
That's
so thank you so much for the last the closing remarks. And I think that it's a really critical that what you mentioned, Angela, that because again that it's a personal experience, right? And it's so true, because you are a Maryland graduate, and all the students from Morehouse School of Medicine, they are going to graduate. And again, everybody has a intense knowledge of and a excellence knowledge of medical marijuana after finishing up their master's program. The difference between these two programs are because University of Maryland is kind of like focused on more scientific pharmacological aspect of medical cannabis, where at Morehouse School of Medicine, what we believe is in a different aspect, that it's a medical drug, right? So students need to understand about the drug development process under the umbrella of the biotechnology before they enter into the medical cannabis, because we are very slowly crawling, but now the time is coming that we are moving that direction. So understanding about the whole process of the drug development, understanding about the FDA, CDC, regulations and policies, what FDA is looking for, or different clinical trial processes, or molecular biology, genetics, and cell biology of the plant, along with that medical benefit, pharmacology, adverse effect, and the management skill, as well as the state and federal regulations that our students get to cover the drug development process of the medical marijuana, which is really, really critical also. So both the programs are giving a cutting edge advantage to the students to be a expert in the field after finishing up the program and utilizing their skills to be the activist in this area, especially at the state of Georgia, because Morehouse School of Medicine is in a mission to change the world, and especially that, like focus on the social equity aspect to support the minorities the way that, we wanted to do in the case of medical marijuana, because as we know that, from years that there are huge amount of data is there that how many people are incarcerated with a medical marijuana possession. And if you see the percentage of the minority population, that's the highest percentage that we can see there. So we need people like us to support this community. And there are gradually that, again, that, like we all know that how the things are changing, more and more grants are coming, more and more research opportunities are coming. So together we can change it, together we can make it better. But, like we have to be connected to each other. And I always tell everyone that, like connectivity is the big weapon that, like we can change the world, and especially with the medical cannabis, because the field is a very fast growing industry. And we definitely need to gather the information, and everybody is not possible that everybody is the expert of everything. So that means collaboration is the key to success. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an honor and it's a pleasure to talking with you guys and talking about the current state of medical cannabis at the state of Georgia.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.